want to introduce you to Susan Lee. Susan Lee runs a successful tourism accommodation business in regional Australia, and she reckons you too can do exactly the same thing. In fact, she's just released pretty much a blueprint of how to go about it if you want to embark on that journey. It's called Booked Out: How to Start and Grow a Successful Regional Tourism Business, and it covers pretty much everything from the idea right down to dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's in the road to creating that business and making it successful and making it sustainable. How did she do it? What's in the book? Let's find out a little bit more. Susan, good morning and welcome.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me.
Lovely to have a chat to you. And it seems like only yesterday that we were talking in person. You were up here, what was it, last week, wasn't it, at the SEGRA conference?
That's right, yeah. I was up for the Regional Economic Development Conference and flogging the book and meeting the locals, and it was great. Actually, my target market was absolutely in the room, so that was great.
So tell me a bit about your own journey to establishing your tourism business. Have you always been a regional dweller, or are you a latecomer to getting out of the cities?
I haven't. Yeah, and I need to just sort of be, for full transparency, I now live in Adelaide. I was born and bred in Adelaide, but I've spent a long time in regional Northern Territory. I lived and worked in Alice Springs for about four years, and then I was a regional tourism manager in the far north of South Australia through the Port Augusta, Flinders Ranges and outback area. And I worked for the state government doing regional campaigns, that kind of thing. And back in the sort of the late 90s, early 2000s, I was a tour guide overseas. So I worked in the Greek islands on boats and in the ski fields, and really sort of learnt very early about the service industry and the kinds of people that come on holiday and the kinds of things that happen when people are on holiday. So having a bit more of a, being a lover of people watching and, anthropology, I sort of realise, you're in a unique position when you're a waitress and you see, people sort of, people going through the motions on holiday. It's quite interesting.
Yeah. Gee, I reckon some of the things you've seen and observations you've made would be a separate interview for another day, I think.
Oh, a whole different book, yeah.
Absolutely. And just on the Adelaide thing, look, in the grand pecking order of Australian capital cities, some people might say that Adelaide is still in the regions.
Oh, we are very much a country town, and no, we are. I think that's, I think when people say it's very hard to break into the networks in Adelaide because we're so connected. It's where you went to school and who you play netball with and who knows who, and everyone's got a, I have a business up in Corn in the Flinders Ranges where I used to live and have lived there on and off and still work through that region. But I run an Airbnb. I have a house there that I couldn't sell because people were not moving to Corn. People were leaving Corn. It's a town full of retired. It's a beautiful town full of retired, country people and farmers. And just recently I leased my house out to a teacher to the Department of Education because, like many regions around Australia, we have a massive shortage of accommodation, for our professionals in our community, educate our kids and our health workers. And my values are that takes priority over leisure. But I've got to say, for many years through the COVID, our region did pretty well. And, being able to turn my property into an accommodation as an Airbnb has been really insightful. And I've learned a lot through that journey, the pros and the cons. And some of that is in the book, yeah.
Are you surprised? And look, obviously that path wasn't entirely smooth. Otherwise I guess you would have learnt nothing and there would be no book. But are you surprised that more people don't see the potential of either something very straightforward like offering a property as an Airbnb to businesses that are perhaps a little bit more involved? Are you surprised that people are still sort of reluctant to take that step? They think it's going to be beyond their capabilities.
Yeah, that's a really great question. It might be indicative of all of the challenges that I've had that I have learnt so much.
Yes.
Trial and error, definitely. That's how I've learned. Like, you don't do it. You don't go to university and do a course to learn this stuff. The other thing is I do consulting, so I work a lot. I fast-tracked my knowledge by working a lot with different businesses in different parts of Australia who are struggling with different issues. So I bring a lot of that into my work as well. But I think the reasons that people don't take the next step are really clear, particularly in regions. You're a long way from city-based help, often the Tourism Commission or the Tourism Industry Council. People won't really help you until you're at least 2 years into your journey and you have, some strong business legs. So my question has always been, well, what happens in those 2 years? Like, how do people get the help that they need? And that's why I wrote the book, because I wanted to help people fast-track rather than swimming around the fishbowl and banging up against the glass barriers and not knowing why they weren't getting help or why they couldn't get the grant. This book, it sort of lies out, takes its, shows how why that happens, I guess. Yeah.
Is it? And you talk about this in the book too, and I guess along that theme of barriers stopping people taking that leap. Do too many people in regional areas have this idea that, gosh, just opening up my property as an Airbnb or just opening up my farm for campers or whatever, that's small fry. That's not actually even a business. Do we sort of have the wrong idea of what a business is or how a business can actually start? It doesn't have to start grand.
Absolutely. Well, one of the myths is that you have to be big to be successful, and this is a bit of an interesting one. It's a bit of a paradox because I'm sort of saying, well, no, actually, you don't have to be big to be successful. You can make profit if you run things, if you're clever and you meet a target market and you don't overinvest in the stuff that doesn't matter and you invest in the stuff that does. And that's the trick in the first couple of years, knowing where to put your money down. And people can spend a lot of money in things that don't make any difference. So putting money into marketing that is going nowhere because people don't come necessarily from overseas. Most people travel within their own regions, in their own states. Of course, now Toowoomba's got a new airport. That might look a bit different for you guys in the coming years. Yeah, but I think there's lots of reasons why people don't go into tourism. Maybe it's considered a bit of a hobby, particularly if you're on a farm. I've had clients, in outback South Australia where their main income has been through sheep farming, and then, over the course of 10, 20 years, droughts and, plagues and, coronavirus and all of the things that hit the tourism industry and the farming industry too, I must say. The tourism has often kept people afloat. It's given you another income stream in tough times, but often it's not treated seriously in the good times. So you sort of find that tourism is the thing that people rely on when farming's bad or when there's a drought. So if you can sort of see that it has its own role to play in balancing out household revenue or business revenue.
Yep.
The other thing is because the the market is so volatile with all of the things that have hit tourism over the last 10 years, really pilot strikes, the list goes on. If you're small, you're going to get more buffeted around in that big stormy sea than if you have a bit of backup cash behind you, if you have a profitable business. And you do need a bit of scale generally to have a bit of a buffer so that you can ride out those tough times in the tourism industry. So in places like, Darling Downs and the Toowoomba region and many other regions, having tourism as more than being a bit more serious about it than a hobby, because it really can support a business and give kids jobs, people on the country, people stay on country, and give people opportunities to go into different directions.
It's interesting though too. So you're saying though that probably having that right attitude is crucial, and not just seeing it as something you do when times are tough. I mean, we're about to go into just waiting for the BOM to officially declare it as we're going into an El Nino.
Into a recession?
No, I suppose from an economic point of view. Yeah, exactly. So exactly. So a lot of landowners might be thinking, well, now we have to look at the second income stream, but as soon as things turn good again, it's sort of like, oh, we don't have to do that anymore.
And that's a real problem.
Yes,
because in marketing, if you switch off your marketing, and this is I guess the book. I hope this makes it clear. But marketing, you need lead times. So travellers, if you are in the leisure space, travellers are planning 2 or 3 months out. Particularly international travellers, they're travelling planning 6 months out. So if you've turned off all of your marketing dials down, if you're not showing up on various websites or you take your eye off the ball, it's like anything. You've got to keep your eye on the ball on all these little channels that you have to manage in your marketing. You don't want too many because it's got to be sustainable. You don't want. I don't really believe in over promoting. I believe in positioning well, having a strong product, having a good price, and doing the fundamentals really well, so that you can just chip away and spin the plates. But yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important for people to keep going, even if you can dial it down. But I think you've got to sort of maintain a presence in the market.
Absolutely.
If you want to actually be successful. Yeah,
because it is that momentum thing, isn't it? Whether you know it or not,
yeah.
by starting that marketing process, you've built up some momentum, and it's it's easier to maintain that than to let it drop and get it going again.
It's very difficult to re-enter a market once you've dropped out. Yeah,
yes.
And I think that's probably just a business principle, isn't it? Like for any business, if you withdraw from, I imagine, like the grain market or a stock market, if people don't see you there, I always try and relate it to other industries because many of my readers are in other industries. But you need to be there, show up. You need to sort of meet your regional tourism marketing manager. You need to be known eventually to your economic development officer and your council. There's just some certain things that you need to do. You need to be on the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, which is a free listing that every tourism operator around Australia can now get on, and that draws down into various websites, consumer-based websites across Australia, which is an amazing opportunity in Australia. So there's some really good foundational things. We're very lucky that we have governments that actually support the tourism industry the way that they do. But it still does remain that, if you want to start your own tourism business, you will be doing a lot of it on your own for the first couple of years. And I guess, it goes back to why I wrote the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting advice on how to do that. All of that marketing advice, which can be the most daunting thing, particularly for someone older who says, I've never posted anything on social media, and not saying that's the be-all and end-all, but, where do I start? That's all in the book. But just finally, because I'm nearly out of time, Susan, but one of the most interesting things I think for a lot of people, you've got a chapter towards the end of things people pay for, which all seems very straightforward. But to a lot of people, they'd be saying, what? I can, just that spare room, or just access to a property to gaze at the stars, or just, the stories that I've known since I was a boy, are actually something that people will pay to hear. A lot of those things would surprise a lot of people, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so great. And I think also for people who are on the land, increasingly consumers are moving away from the pampered tourist mindset, and they actually want to see businesses and companies being responsible for dealing with and tackling with some of our big issues like climate change and environmental conservation. And really, our land-based businesses are where some of those great stories and great inventions and innovations are happening. So I think the things that people in the country probably take for granted every day, the solar and the wind and the innovations that are occurring so that people can, stay on the land and the land can be in a good state. They're the things that people kind of want to go and see, particularly if you're living in a city. You're so far removed. So the stuff that you take for granted is the stuff that actually people want to see. So think about how you can make that accessible in a friendly way. And you've got something very unique and very different right there as an experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I mean, the shift towards experiential tourism has been a gift for, people, I guess, that we're talking to this morning, who are not aware or even just sort of thinking they might have some sort of a tourism venture, under their very nose. The book is called Booked Out, How to Start and Grow a Successful Regional Tourism Business. Susan Lee, fascinating to have a chat to you this morning.
Thanks, David. That's great.